Robbie's he's in a good headspace, and it's primarily because he's mad about Gabe Urban. Did you think a week later we would be struggling for running backs to fulfill roles like Trevin Lubin? You're on the Price is Right. Come on down.
Hey, look, you had a nice carry at the end of that game. It was.
I mean, how odd is that? Like, did you hear Gabe Urban after? At what point did we think Gabe Urban was like it was going to be? It was really bad.
I had no idea. I mean, so full disclosure, yesterday I was out of pocket, was just completely off the grid. And by the time I resurfaced at around 2:00 and was looking at my phone, and I'm seeing some of these text messages come in from friends, and I'm just like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it was, I had to call Brunts and get filled in. I mean, I didn't see this coming today. Ramir Johnson, the street closed, like that's never a great sign. As early as it happened on Saturday. So I wondered if he wouldn't be out for, a little bit. But I don't think Gabe Irvin just being done was on my radar, or really anybody else's. And Nebraska's, running back depth gets cut down in a hurry. But it's a challenge of football. I mean, you have to build depth. You have to have guys ready to go. I mean, so next man up. It's just how this always seems to work.
How much of what you think we'll see from the running back spot has to do with, all right, because obviously Lacey, and I really like Emmett Johnson, and of course I'm a Grant guy. I never pass up the opportunity to say something good about Lubin. However it works, has to do with things other than running the football to play in this offense.
I think that's a portion of it. You said Lacey. Did you mean like Quentin Ives?
Ives, I meant not the incoming. I meant Ives.
I know that EJ Barthel really likes Quentin Ives, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a little bit of run in there too. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, they're going to want guys that can do the simple things. People get really mad about this. It hasn't mattered which running back coach says it, but they need guys that can pass protect. Mm-hmm. I mean, they need guys that can step up and take care of blitzers. I mean, they need guys, if they're going to have a quarterback run game, some of the best blocks that occurred on Saturday, Gabe Irvin was throwing those. So, the running back role isn't just you stand back there and you get handed the ball and you're told to run to daylight. Like they need these guys to be able to do a lot of different things. And so the loss of Gabe Irvin isn't just what he could do carrying the football. It was how he was helping you in other ways. And, I think they're relatively fortunate. You still have Anthony Grant, who carried a heavy load for you last year, and I think wants every single carry that he can get on the planet. But obviously, there's still a little bit of concern with the fumbles there and everything else. So we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out.
Schaefer, do you think at all with the emphasis that you're going to need to put on blocking and things like that we possibly might see some Bonner or Liebenbritt at a kind of in a one back situation like that? Do you maybe get the fullback involved in that running back room a little bit?
I think it's definitely a possibility. Look, I think they have to consider every kind of avenue here as they try to figure out what this offense is. I mean, you're 3 weeks into the season. You just had your first game where you displayed any kind of rhythm whatsoever. And now you're down to talking about your fourth and fifth string running backs, talking about, how you're going to navigate this. I mean, it's definitely been a tough start for them offensively. And, oh, by the way, your quarterback situation is going to be somewhat unsettled, at least in the near term. So good luck, I guess, is the best way to phrase it.
So did it seem like Nebraska played 29 guys on defense to you?
Yes, it did. I mean, they part of the thing, we're sitting up there in the press box and I've got Brunson, BC, and those guys are basically just always kind of going back and forth. So-and-so just came in. So-and-so is here. So you hear a lot of that, and I'm sitting right in the middle of those two guys, and it's just like you felt like you heard every name on defense at one point in time. And so one of the things, I've said this repeatedly, I liked how Tony White phrased it last week in his media thing. They have done a really nice job building depth in a hurry on defense because, as he said, if you show him something in practice, you will get a opportunity If you show him something in that opportunity, you are going to get more opportunities to ultimately prove that you earned it. And so that style is only going to allow more guys to get on the field and then start to show that they deserve those opportunities. And then if you start to have defensive injuries, which all of it seems to be on the offensive side of the ball, but if you start to have, critical defensive injuries, you have guys ready to go in those situations. I think that's really valuable.
Schaefer, we've been talking a lot about quarterback, obviously, and quarterback run game. In 2 of the 3 games, the quarterbacks have carried it for 19 and 21 times, respectively, between Sims against Minnesota and Haarberg against Northern Illinois. I mean, do you expect that to be much more the norm now with the situation of the running back room and the fact that you feel like maybe you have 2 QBs that are capable of shouldering some of the load? Are you expecting to see 15 to 20 pretty much every week now?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it kind of feels like that has to be a part of your offense. The passing game continues to kind of be a little bit iffy, and then, I don't know that you're at a point where you can just put 30 carries on Anthony Grant a game. So the quarterback running game is going to be a piece of this, and I think we're going to see both of those quarterbacks a fair amount, kind of the rest of the year, because I just don't know what the health situation is going to be. If you can get let's say you have Jeff Sims back this week and he plays well in his opportunity against a group of 5 opponent, but you have to run them 18 times. I just don't know that that's sustainable to ask either of those guys to make it through the rest of the season by themselves, averaging 15 carries a game. So in addition to, however many times you get hit throughout a game as a quarterback. So that's definitely going to be something to watch. But the quarterback running game now, to me, has just been elevated even more because of these injuries.
All right, so along those lines, stay right there. Does the emergence of handoff run game make a case for either Haarberg or Sims, or is the fact that it may not be as deep as they wanted to, does that make a case for either Haarberg or Sims?
I don't know that either one should. I think the case for Haarberg or Sims should really just come down to if Sims in his next opportunity, which I think is going to happen. Like, I don't think this is just going to be the Heinrich Haarberg show from here on out. But if Sims in his next opportunity continues to turn the ball over, that has to be the thing that guides everything. Because if you're, it sounds absurd, but if he's still averaging 3 turnovers a game, you just can't play him. I mean, you just can't. So I think that more than what happened at your running back spot should dictate that. And so, if Sims plays against Louisiana Tech or Michigan or whomever, whatever his next opportunity, and he comes away and he only has 1 turnover, that in itself is progress. And if your offense can continue to find ways to put up points, then I think you can move forward with that. But if he comes out and he has a bunch of turnovers, then I think you have to go back to Haarberg.
Schaefer, I'm kind of thinking about reps for Louisiana Tech and getting ready for Michigan, right? If in your mind, kind of where's the percentage of health would you want to put Jeff Sims out there at least for some time against Louisiana Tech? Because I don't know. I mean, at least tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't know that maybe you really want to keep him out for 2 weeks and then just throw him to the Wolves at Michigan. Ideally, you'd like him to get some run this week, right?
Yeah, we're of the same mind of this. I really feel like the guy who plays bulk, or if whoever plays all of it against Louisiana Tech has to be the guy against Michigan. I just think that's a really tough ask to miss 2 weeks and then be dropped into what is the toughest game on your schedule against an incredibly physical team that we've already talked about turnover issues. Then you're putting him against a defense most likely to kind of probably turn him over. So I would have a tough time imagining if Jeff Sims doesn't play at all against Louisiana Tech, asking him to come back against Michigan almost seems like you're setting him up for failure. And I don't believe that Matt Rhule or Marcus Satterfield wants to do that.
Schaefer, when you're taking a look at the emergence of guys to throw the ball to, is it as simply as having a healthy Marcus Washington becoming the guy, or do you like the emergence? And let's keep tight ends out of it for a second. I'll let you get to that in a second. Or is it simply about the more the merrier at the wideout spot?
Well, so the tough thing with Marcus Washington is he's never had a game at Nebraska where he's had 100 yards, I believe. Or if he has, it's maybe one time. But I don't think that's happened yet. I don't know how many games where he's had more than 5 catches. He just feels like he's a really solid 2 to 3 catch a game guy, which is really good. Like, you need that. And as your second wide receiver, that's important. But at this point, because he doesn't feel like he's really a game breaker or even just such a possession wide receiver that you get that much value out of it that way, it feels like it's the more the merrier. Like they have to have other guys sort of step in there. Because I just don't know, as I look at Marcus Washington, if it's fair to assume he can average 75 yards in a game. Like, I don't know that Nebraska has a receiver that can. So I'm not just trying to pick on Marcus Washington here, but my concern is that I think he's a good number 2 in this offense. I don't know that he can really be your number 1. I don't know that they have a number 1. So for me, that means you got to get production out of a lot of different people.
Could Thomas Fidone turn into your number 1?
Sure could, yeah. I mean, I think he has, the pedigree to do that, and as he continues to show, the ability to stay healthy, some explosion. Obviously, I think that some of it with him, you scheme up some things, you get a guy wide open in the middle of the field. That's not so much what he's done as it was, a breakdown or setting that up, but he's there to make that play. And that's what you need. And so I think, one of the great things is it's still early in the season. Like, we don't have to know who their leading receiver is or who their most explosive wide receiver or tight end or whatever is right now. But what you want to see is people continuing to get better. Then it would be, a really tough argument from someone to say that Thomas Fidone isn't going to continue to get better because he's healthy. He's playing. His production has gone up every week from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. And I believe his snaps have gone up every week too. Those are the sort of things that you want to see. And so can he be reliable enough that you can make him the focal point of your passing game? We'll find out. But I don't know that there's any reason I can tell you it can't happen.
Schaefer, let me ask you something. If a couple of things can be true at once, do you separate Sims' development up to the point that he was playing versus Harburg's development up until when we saw him against Northern Illinois and not talk about Coach Satterfield in terms of development?
You're going to have to phrase that again. I heard the word.
So can Coach Satterfield be vilified for Sims at the same time as he gets credit for Harburg?
No, but I guess I don't really. In my mind, I'm not worrying about who's getting the credit or the blame, and I don't know that anyone should. I mean, what we're talking about here is small sample size with all of this. I mean, you have Jeff Sims in 2 games at Nebraska. Like, what he did at Georgia Tech is fine and nice, and it's data points, and we can't ignore it. But these are 2 games at Nebraska with different pieces in a different offense that he had a fall camp to work up to, and that's it. And so you have those 2 data points. And then you have Heinrich Harburg, who never started a game, had never played in an FBS game until the second week of this season. And so their processes aren't the same. Where they're at aren't the same. I'm not worried about what the development track of either of them are yet, because I think a lot of it to me is I just want to see what it looks like if Nebraska can get on track. Now, obviously, Marcus Satterfield is the one tasked with getting these guys on track. But I don't know that I'm ready to make that comparison of his work with one versus his work with the other, because I think a lot of it is in the same point. I mean, I think you're trying to figure out what you are as an offense before you worry about every individual piece.
That's Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, we appreciate it as always. And, maybe we'll talk to you next week. I don't know how I feel after the of that interview.
He's still mad. It's happening to the best of us.
Hang in there. I'm sorry that Tua, has touch on his passes and can throw all over the field, and Trevor Lawrence is fine. You're
right. Trevor Lawrence has none of those things. All right.
Not on Sunday, he didn't.
You can go now, Schaefer. I think Schaefer needs some mentoring.
Oh, he's great.
Maybe he can call our friends at Big Brothers, Big Sisters, as you should. Go to mentoromaha.org to become a big. More of Benning and Lula coming up next.